2021 was the year these axolotl-looking creatures blew up. 4 years later, people are still playing the game. The big question is, why? Axie Infinity was released in March 2018. It was a simple card game developed by Mavis with these cute axolotl-like figures. In its classic version, you play a 3v3 PvP match with other users and earn gold as your reward. Gold eventually became what we know today as Smooth Love Potion, or SLP, the main reward token of Axie Infinity. Despite the small earning potential back then, there was already some traction, or at least enough to keep a few players going. That's why a whole business model was built around this. You'd have managers that would buy the Axies and scholars who would play the game. And they'd have their own agreement on how much each party would earn every cutoff. It was mutually beneficial on both sides. I mean, scholars didn't have to shell out money for capital to buy these Axies, and managers didn't have to spend time actually playing the game. Some of these setups even turned into communities and guilds, which allowed for small-scale community tournaments to rise on the side. There was slow but steady progress for the game in the next few years. Now in 2020, we all know that the entire world was shaken with such a turn of events, the global pandemic. People were stuck in their houses, some left jobless with no source of income, and some were just bored. In June of that same year, Axie Infinity found its way to the Ronin chain. 8 months later, they made it to mainnet. And that was the pivotal turning point for the game. So mix the accessibility of the game as it made it to the mainnet with the timing of this one.
I'm bored in the house and I'm in the house bored. Bored in the house and I'm in the house bored. Bored in the motherfucker in the house bored.
Sprinkled with the concept of play to earn, it made for a deadly combination in the crypto space. While blockchain gaming has always been a thing prior to Axie, this game is considered to be the pioneer of play-to-earn gaming. These NFTs were cute, and the gameplay was familiar because it reminded players of the Pokemon card game. It was overly hyped through word of mouth that people started jumping on the game. This caused the value of SLP to skyrocket. I actually had first-hand experience and was already playing the game as a scholar prior to SLP's all-time high value of $0.3997 US. That might sound low, but imagine earning 600 SLP or even 1800 SLP. You could easily sell them at that point for like 200 to 800 US. Not to mention, if you were part of the leaderboards, you could also gain their other main utility token, AXS. And at that time, AXS also had its peak value of $164.90. These earnings were the exact reason why I eventually bought my own team and even onboarded my very own scholar. Everything was great. All was going smoothly. Up until that point that the value of SLP started to decline. And I mean really decline. Because ironically, the hype of Axie Infinity proved to be its own problem at the time too. With so many people playing the game, so many SLP tokens were being minted or created, and there wasn't enough burning mechanic to it. In a real-life scenario, this would be the equivalent of printing unlimited money. But what happens when society has a surplus of it and is not spending it as fast? It loses its value. That's exactly what happened with SLP. With its quick rise also came its quick downward trend. While you could burn SLP by breeding Axies, this wasn't nearly enough to deal with the oversupply. In fact, this led to an oversupply of Axies too. Most of the players, especially the scholars, were in this purely to sell SLP in exchange for money. This shifted the balance of supply and demand and the general value of SLP. This highlights once again how completely volatile the crypto market can be. Eventually, SLP lost its value and became barely profitable. This led to a massive drop-off in the number of players. So okay, that's cool. 2021 was their peak year, and they were entering 2022 with the game slowly dying. But again, it's 2025 and people are still playing. What has Axie been doing all this time? I think I forgot to mention that throughout all the hype the team's been getting, they actually raised massive amounts of investor interest. We're talking millions and millions of dollars here. So Mavis had a lot of room to grow with all that money. This also gave them more leeway to make mistakes in the trial and error process of sustaining the game. They entered 2022 more experimental than the previous years. They were trying to solve a lot of problems they encountered. They removed play-to-earn SLP feature and shut down the leaderboard's ranking rewards to figure out the token oversupply problem. They allowed Axies to run free and be released because, again, there were too many Axies. They were also steering people to take a look at their lands by announcing the upcoming release of Axie Infinity, Homeland. And then they focused more on their new game, Axie Origins. Axie Infinity Origins was the counter to Axie Infinity Classic. In the Classic version, you had to purchase 3 NFTs first before you could play the game, so this required initial capital and was considered to be an entry barrier. In Origins, they gave you free Axies, making the game completely free to play, welcoming to all those who just wanted to try it out. But you can still use your existing Axies from the Classic version and play them at Origins. The game mechanics were also different and a bit more complicated. Eventually came the beta release of Axie Infinity Homelands, a game for those who invested in the land NFTs of Axie Infinity. Players build and manage their own land. The land itself will be composed of various resources which players can gather and use to craft items, upgrade their land, and create new gameplay dynamics. You can also embark on adventures and equip your characters with all sorts of armors and weapons. But again, still no play-to-earn mechanic during its initial release. Despite cutting back on the earning potential in the game, Axie diverted its focus on more community-centric events. Hence the rise of AxieCon, Axie Meets, and more esports events. Add the fact that during Axie Infinity's glory days, hundreds of communities were built. As cavemen would always say, communities in Web3 will bring people hope and bring them closer together. Another thing that's worth noting about their ecosystem is that Axie was also built on the Ronin chain, which I'd say was a mutually beneficial relationship. Axie brought in the hype to Ronin. This empowered more game devs to release their games on the chain, which in turn encouraged players to continue playing Ronin chain games too. I'll account that for the fact that it's easier to transfer assets when they're already on the same blockchain network, so the onboarding process generally becomes easier. I'm not saying that Axie Infinity's run was all smooth sailing. They definitely had their fair share of problems. I mean, Sky Mavis got hacked at one point, and they ended up losing 173,600 Ethereum and 25.5 million USDC. That's approximately a total of $612 million and is considered the largest DeFi exploit ever. The hacking was linked to North Korean hackers called the Lazarus Group. Axie immediately shut off access to some of their services to limit transactions, and they also raised funds in partnership with Binance to repay some of the missing assets. And while it's unclear if the balance was fully paid off, this still wasn't Axie Infinity's downfall. People still trusted them. From that point on till today, most of Axie's success and longevity were sustained by their marketing efforts and community. Axie continues to support so many content creators who gave them hype during their peak and even after. Their efforts to always cater to their community and be as responsive as they can be paid off. The focus on esports and close collaborative efforts with guilds like Yield Guild Gaming allowed for more ideas to flow and overall grow. In 2024, a new way to earn was introduced through bounty boards. Here, you'd have daily tasks which rewarded you with AXS. It required you to play the Classic and Origins version of the game. If you had more of their native NFTs, you'd have access to unlock more of the bounties and earn even more. Admittedly, it's not a lot, but it's still something for those who really need it. It's also something that kept the game buzzing once again. In recent news, they just announced the upcoming release of their new MMORPG, Atia's Legacy, which, by the way, is very exciting. I'm really looking forward to it. So to answer the question, why are people still playing the game? It felt like a loaded question at the start, so it's only fitting that we have loaded answers to it. First off, Axie Infinity was a pioneer, in the same sense where people always go back to Counter-Strike because it's the OG shooter game. It's familiar, it's nostalgic, it's comfortable. Second, from a player's perspective, Axie Infinity is still a dream turned into reality. The opportunity to earn while playing a game? Who would have thought it was possible? So many people are trying to keep that dream alive. Third, it's fun. Remove the play-to-earn feature of the game and look at it as it is right now. It's actually really fun. The aesthetics are cute, the gameplay is easy enough, but at the same time, quite challenging. Next is Axie's approach to marketing and community. Sky Mavis knows that their bread and butter is the community, so they cater to it. If they lack innovation with a game, they make up for it through other collaborative efforts outside of it. Esports tournaments, Ronin Chain, Games.gg, YGG, and so many more. They started creating an ecosystem that is beyond Web3 and the game itself. It starts meshing with mainstream and real life. Lastly, it's their optimistic yet realistic approach. Axie already had a proof of concept before people even got wind of what the game was like. It's not the same with current times where we see so many Web3 games overpromise and underdeliver. Sky Mavis stuck to the same formula. A little teaser of what's to come, but make sure that you deliver in the end. They did it with Axie Infinity Classic, Origins, Homelands, and they're about to do the same for Atia's Legacy. Axie Infinity has come a long way, and it's clear that the journey isn't over yet. Even with the ups and downs, the game has built something special. A community that keeps coming back, whether you're here for gameplay, the nostalgia, or the chance to earn. Axie still has a lot to offer. I'd love to hear what keeps you playing Axie, or if you're just getting started. Thanks for watching! Catch you in the next one.